she actually was going to take her life and jump from a high story building. However, right before that occurred, she had a vision from Christ, and he said, "Don't do it." I felt despair and death in my heart. Then I warped speed to hell. What I saw was a deep isolation from everything. Not too long after that, I felt like Jesus was speaking to me through my For You page, because other people were talking about their near-death experiences, and they also mentioned the detail of the warp speed tunnel. I'm going to talk about how I went from being, to the most part, an unbeliever and an atheist, all the way to a complete believer in Jesus Christ. And earlier in life, I really saw this whole religion, at the time my perspective was, this is a religion thing, and it's traditional because I was growing up with it, and that's what my parents were introduced to. So I'm just being introduced to it. I went into the school system, introduced to it. So I'm like, okay, this is a belief system that was put upon the people who preceded me, and that's what they followed through with. I just, like I said, I saw it as a belief system. I mean, Jesus rising from the dead and these great big miracles occurring in the Bible. Like, I didn't even read the Bible. I just heard about it. I went to mass, but it didn't really like sink that deep in. And there are a couple things that occurred in my life that really changed that trajectory. There are things where I watch online debates that really convinced me further. There are things where I had some personal experiences, and things where I saw I witnessed, I listened to a person's testimony as well. And I would like to get into those things. Let's talk about the heartstring stuff. Now, I had a client. Like, I was tutoring a client in accounting. And let me tell you about her story. Now, she had a rough life. She had a rough past, and she's a strong woman, but she just had it hard. When she was a kid, she had to work because her parents were gone. She lost her mother and father in an accident. She said it was a car accident. And because of that, she had to work. She worked in the coal mines. She just had to get by somehow. And she had a brother with her along her side. However, she lost her brother later in adolescence because he was like a really handsome man. He was successful in real estate in LA. But his jealous ex poisoned him. And that was a really sad moment for her. It hit. But despite all this, she really focused on herself, her career. She was very proactive. She found success in her career. So, I mean, good on her. She lost her parents. She lost her brother. She lost some pretty close people to her, like significant pillars in life. Despite that, she grew. But tragedy hit when she herself got into a car accident. It left her a cripple, and it also caused brain damage. Now, this completely turned her world upside down. She was unable to work. She was hospital ridden, and she fell into a deep depression so bad that she wanted to take her own life. And she was in a mental ward as well for quite some time. She was diagnosed with a lot of things. She was later released. She recovered enough, and she enrolled back in school because it'd been so long since she had been in the workforce, and she had to relearn. She had to relearn how to talk. She had to relearn a lot of things. And she was here like getting tutored by me on the topic of accounting. And she had a hard time in school, which is why she had a tutor, and she invested in herself. Prior to meeting me, And I don't know the timeline, but there was a period of time where she actually was going to take her life and jump from a high story building. However, right before that occurred, she had a vision from Christ, and he said, "Don't do it." He said to her and showed her the suffering in the world, that no matter how rich, poor, young, old you are, there will be suffering. There are poor people that are impoverished and starve. There are rich people who, although they're rich, they don't have real relationships, and they're addicted to drugs to make up for that hole in their hearts, for that loneliness. There are old people that suffer because their bodies can't function the way they used to. And there are young people that suffer mentally because they go through trauma with their parents. They're suffering everywhere. But despite that, he promises her that he will comfort her. That hits deep. In the end, after having this vision and intervention with Christ, she chose not to take her life. And at the time, I was still young, and I didn't know what to make of that. Anyways, fast forward, I had my own intervention. Like, that's crazy. So I have been so focused on my job that I work 12-hour shifts Monday to Friday and 8-hour shifts on Saturdays during tax season. I was working for the government, and it was really busy, and I really lost myself in work. Now, you hear of those stories of people who lose their lives through overexhaustion in Japan at a young age. It's not uncommon to hear in the news 20-some-year-olds or mid-20-year-olds lose their lives from being overworked in Asia, like Seoul and Korea, Japan. Honestly, I honestly felt like I was gonna be part of that statistic, because I'd overworked like, the money was great, working overtime, getting paid overtime, getting paid late night premium. I was really like money hungry, but it was at the expense of my health, and I felt that blood pressure go up. I was clocking into work tired more than ever. I was suffering, groggy. I wake up 8 a.m. clock and work, and I wouldn't feel completely snapped out and wait. I catch myself like dozing off, and by 3 p.m. in the day, that's when like my body would feel like awake, but at the same time, still like I feel my heart just compress. So needless to say, I was pretty fucked up. I had a quick little rest one day, and it was so ethereal. I can't forget it. It felt so real. I had a succubus go on top of me and ride me, trying to get that poom poom in, and I was like getting into it, and it felt like physical and also spiritual. And I finished in that succubus, not like physically, but like mentally and spiritually. But right after that, Resident Evil style, it opened its fucking face. I had like fangs, or what you call it? Like, there's this monster in Stranger Things where its head splits open and like consumes you. Like, shit, that happened to me. I'm like, what the fuck, yo? Oh my gosh. And I was sent into like this wormhole, this light speed wormhole, and I was like, yo, that's crazy. Oh, sorry. Right before the light speed wormhole, I was like trying to fight. I was like trying to punch it, trying to punch that succubus, and I would like beat the shit out. Like, it was like punching air. It took no damage, but I was more like pissed off than scared. I was like, get this shit. Like, let me get back to life, bro. But I could. It was so odd. Like, I felt like I was seeing the POV from my spirit, and I saw my body and my bed, and I was walking in my room. Then I was sent into, that was weird, by the way. That was pretty damn weird. Then I was sent into like this light speed tunnel, and I was like, yo, I felt despair and death in my heart. Then I warp speed to hell. Now, I didn't feel the heat as people say it in their testimonies. God like safeguarded me from that. What I saw was a deep isolation from everything. An abyss of darkness. I couldn't count how many, like you could like it, an endless abyss of people stuck in the abyss trying to like get out there, and you could tell that their suffering is hot for them, and it's all isolation. And I knew in my heart there's scary things in the darkness there that you can't see, but they're there. And I heard from testimonies that yes, there are, and there's shadowy figures that exist in the dark. It's so weird. Anyways, I was super scared, and I asked Jesus for forgiveness, and I really wanted back in life. So he pulled me out. It was so fast, and I warp speed tunnel back into that tunnel. It was like a vortex with white with like different colors, like streams of color, but like white, because it was so fast, like speed of light. And then I was back in my body. That whole thing felt so long, but also it was less than 50 minutes. Now that was pretty fucking odd to me. Not too long after that, I felt like Jesus was speaking to me through my For You page, because other people were talking about their near-death experiences, and they also mentioned the detail of the warp speed tunnel. Like, you get out of your body and you get into this warp speed tunnel. Now, I guess I had a near-death experience in that case of almost ending up like one of those statistics of those 20-some-year-olds who overworked themselves and lost their lives to overexhaustion, high blood pressure due to work. That could have been me. I suppose Jesus put my soul back in my body. I don't know why. I guess he's giving me a second chance. So I'm sharing this testimony. It hits deep. It hits different. Now I didn't I didn't 180 after that. I still couldn't believe it. In my mind, I was like, yeah, like this is a little different. Like, and there are people sharing this in the testimony. There are testimonies, and it's kind of similar to mine. But I'm like, yo, this is some like psychosis shit. Like, I need some rest. I need to like relax. Like, I need to get my sleep back. So I cut off on the overtime. And I was still living like that life. I wasn't like being a Christian. Fast forward, despite like having my sleep back, I noticed like whenever I'd give into like my sinful thoughts, sinful desires, lust, right? When I would give into some stuff like that, fuck, man, I'd see the correlation of sin and the correlation of sleep paralysis demons. What the fuck? I I would struggle, and I would test things out. Like, oh, I'll call on the name of Michael the Archangel to save me. I call on the name of God to save me. And I wasn't like Muslim or anything, but I did call on Allah to test it out. And then I called on the name Jesus Christ. I snapped out of it the moment I called in his name. I was like, what? That softened my heart. Like that opened myself up to receiving the Holy Spirit. I was like, okay, this is not some coincidence bullshit. But I still continued to sin. And then my For You page would show up, and it'd show things about Jesus, and I was like, it would just inform me about people's testimonies, their experiences, and verses from the Bible. And like that was like slowly teetering into my heart, opening me up to the possibility of submitting and accepting Jesus. Now, what really, and it only happened like last year, was like I had another sleep paralysis episode, and in that I was like, okay, I want to see Jesus. Like, there are other testimonies where people say like they saw what Jesus looks like and stuff. I want to see Jesus. Like, I want to ask him, hey, Jesus, can you reveal yourself to me? Can you reveal yourself to me? I know I'm not worthy. I know I've been a sinner. But I'd like to see you, please. And in that sleep paralysis, the demons were gone. They vanished. And he showed himself to me. Now, I was expecting some kind of like face and stuff. I don't know why. Because you see all those portraits and pictures of Jesus. Honestly, like looking back at it, that's kind of dumb. But when I saw him, he was in white garments, so pure, so clean. And I couldn't see his face because his face was radiating pure light. Pure light. And it was this grace and peace that I felt from him. And I was so moved. After that, I felt so bad. I felt shameful for my sin. I felt his intervention in my life, just like his intervention in that woman's life. Now I could see like what she meant. I'd been losing myself to my worldly desires, and I would have lost myself completely to the world had it not been for Jesus coming to rescue me. Even especially when I didn't know I needed rescuing. Crazy shit. Now, after that, I was like, okay, let me look into this further. Now, I had some friends say like, oh, you say that people, if they don't believe in Jesus, they'll go to hell. Well, Jews will say the same thing about you. Muslims will say the same thing about you. It's all like religion. It's all like just like religion's like the biggest cause for war because people conflict. I mean, I know that like in the ancient, or not ancient time, but like in the past, people would use religion as a political guise for their geopolitical wars. It's like a Trojan horse that they used. Sheep's mask. I could get into that, but I don't want to get into that right now. Anyways, that's not the point. The point is, okay, yeah, my friend questioned my belief system, and he brought a point up that I had believed in previously in my life too. Yeah, it's a belief system. Other people who follow their own religions or practices will call you out and say, no, like you as a Christian that believes that Jesus will go to hell. Jews will say that, Muslims will say that. So what makes you so special? So I had looked online, and I came across debates between Jews, Muslims, Christians. And Also, like atheists too, against Christians. And of those debates, I saw the Christian debaters absolutely mop the Jewish debaters, the Muslim debaters, and the atheists. One person that really played a big role in those debates was Sam Shimon. He completely took people's objections against Christianity and turned those objections against them. He poked holes because he knows the Surah, the Quran, very well, and Muslim objections against Christianity. He knows the Bible. Like, he knows it deeply. And he can pull like even the very specific exact verses and use those verses from the Bible. There are times when like Muslims come in onto his like stream and debate him, and he educates Muslims on their own religion. Like, how could you know this about? He knows different translations of the Quran. And because like Muslims are not just like one thing, like they're a wide spectrum. You know, some believe in, you know, one text, others believe in another text in the Quran. Like, so he's able to identify, you know, what those even those specific Muslims debate on, and counter that subset of Muslim. And then I was like blown away. Okay, so here's someone that has identified holes in the opposing arguments of these people who claim that if you believe in Christ, you'll go to hell. Well, he poked absolute holes that they couldn't justify. And then they gave emotional arguments back. Like, so from a logical point of view, religion-wise, Christianity wins. Now, also, like when it comes to atheism too and evolutionism, I saw well-versed, educated men study the human genome, evolution, and anthropology, the archaeological sites, also like archaeology, the archaeological sites of the Grand Canyon. They pointed out evidence in the genome sequence that proves that humans are from Adam and Eve. Like the theory that humans are from Adam and Eve are more statistically accurate than the theory of humans coming from apes. And they prove that via the genome sequence. Now, I can talk into that more, but I also want to discuss briefly about like the Grand Canyon too. They touched up on how the erosion came about, the rate at which it occurred, and how it biblically the way the Grand Canyon was cut out matches the stories of the Great Flood in the Bible. So I'll just show his channel here. So I mean, this is like these are the greatest reasons why like I really believe in Jesus. Number one, he intervened in the life of someone I knew. He intervened in my life. And watching long form logical arguments made with supporting evidence from the sources that the arguers would use to debate them, like that full circle makes me convinced that Christianity is the truth. Say what you want, you can never change my opinion, because this is my lived experience. Yeah. So thanks for coming this far, guys. I know it's been a long video. I really appreciate it. Now, I'm a new growing channel. So I appreciate the love. If you could leave a like, please subscribe and leave a comment. I want to see your comments, and I will respond to your comment. Truly. Unless it's like a fucking hate comment. Like, yeah. Well, yeah. Show some love. And, much respect. God bless you. Jesus Christ loves you. And do your own research. I'm not asking you to, like, blindly turn from your belief system. Like, I'm asking you, okay, like, maybe look into it, maybe watch some Shamshamoon's content, and in the end there, make a fair decision on whether this is convincing enough to you or not. Much respect and much love. Peace out, guys.